Hey guys, it's Sam with Davenport Graphics, and I'm out here today at an abandoned brickyard that is like a 5 minute drive from my house. And so the reason I'm out here is this is actually a perfect spot to get into my first mapping missions. And I'm out here today specifically to test measure ground control with the Phantom 4 Pro V2. And it's also a chance for me to get out in the field and actually start to practice more content that I would like to be able to actually have on my channel, with that hopefully can be educational material or just of entertainment value for people who like to view my content, and just learning lessons for myself as I look back and just kind of see how I've progressed as a freelance drone pilot. And but like I said, this is an abandoned brick factory, and I will go ahead and start throwing some aerial footage right now of what the area looks like. But as you can see, there's a bunch of different outbuildings that make up this entire complex. Like there's a very large sort of a warehouse looking building over there, but there's a smaller one right here that I'm actually going to be mapping with the Phantom 4 and measure ground control. I've been looking at sort of the free solutions to sort of dip my toes into the world of mapping with drones. And one reason I actually purchased the Phantom 4 V2 versus any of the other travel drones like the Mavic or something else like one of the unique Typhoons is because of the global shutter that is on the Phantom 4 that comes with it. Makes it one of the better consumer drones on the market just because of the type of shutter that it uses. It creates images that are a lot more accurate than the linear rolling shutters that you find on many of the other, like, more common portable travel drones. And granted, the Phantom 4 is not as portable, so the case that I carry it in, it's not the stock case. It's big enough to carry 6 batteries, the controller, spare propellers, and all the different accessories that I would need for it. But so as you can imagine, it's quite a lot of weight to carry around versus, a smaller travel drone, which I'd like to add to my fleet at some point. But for today's purposes, I'm actually going to finally get to start using the drone for like one of its intended purposes, which is mapping. So if you already follow and you've been a subscriber to my content, thank you so much. But if you like what you see and you're not a subscriber yet, do me a favor and just give a like and share and subscribe. And also, I just want to disclose, this place is abandoned. There is a lot of graffiti around here, and a lot of it isn't appropriate. I do want to maintain a sort of like professional um, content on my channel when I can, so I at least want it to be safe for all audiences. But a lot of the graffiti around here isn't appropriate, and it's not my. If any of it makes its way into the frames, it's not my goal to highlight that, and I'll try to remove as much of it as I can. But if any of it makes its way in there, I sincerely apologize. Some of it may be offensive, but with that out of the way, just keep in mind that some of the images and graffiti aren't appropriate for work and may not be suitable for all ages. But with that out of the way, let's go to measure ground control, and let's get started. And next time you see me in the video, I'll be back in my home office and scrolling through the images that we took, and let's get to it. Hey guys, we're back in the office, and before we jump into all the footage that we were able to capture back at the brickyard, I just wanted to just give like a quick overview of measure ground control. And real quick, I have to keep stopping myself because I keep wanting to say Q ground control. Which is a different software platform for, I think, like open source autopilot. So forgive me if I ever mix something up and I say Q ground control or measure Q ground control or something like that. But it's measure ground control. I just got to keep reciting that to myself. But anyway, so here we are on Measure Ground Control's website, and it is there's different price tiers depending on what it is that you're looking to get out of it. For me, as a single user, the free plan works just fine. It allows you to create 2 maps per month, and which is fine right now while I'm just sort of just getting off the ground, pun intended. And there's not, and like the pro version is $69 per month. But as you can see, there's not a lot of difference between just the free plan as a single user that can create 2 maps per month versus the unlimited maps that I get with the pro plan. There's a few more things like equipment management, and I think that's just another big thing. Okay, so like unlimited image upload, so it does come with a few more bells and whistles, but for now, at least for capturing data, the single user plan works just fine. Plus, you can always use a different platform to post-process your photos, and something that can actually do the photogrammetry that puts all of your images together. So we can explore those options later, but for now I just kind of wanted to go over like what it is exactly, and just let everyone know that like, hey, they have a free option that will at least let you upload missions to your drone and actually capture the footage for free. It's the post-processing and like depending on what you're going to do with that data that's going to cost you. Okay, so when you log into Measure Ground Control, this is the interface that you're going to see. And I'll probably, if I end up sticking with this tool, I will probably make a more detailed video that goes more in-depth through the features that it offers. But one reason that I went with this is that there is, like as you can see, there's a web interface that allows you to organize all of your flights. And that's really beneficial to me because at the moment I don't really have a tablet. I just have my phone that I take with me that I use to control my Phantom 4 but it's much easier to plan my missions and flight plans here on my desktop at home, and just I look up an address and I can plan the mission beforehand and then just execute it as soon as I get on site. So the fact that I can do that is a huge time saver. But let me go into my recent missions, and I went ahead and also took a few pictures of my house. My house is fairly small, so it's not really anything to write home about, I think, and I took it at closer to dusk, so the pictures aren't as good. But that's the address of the brickyard, and so this is the what you'll see is a mission contains a set of flight plans. You can have multiple flight plans with a mission, but to me, a mission would be like an address, and the flight plan would be like the different areas of the site that I'm mapping, or it could be dependent on the day or just whatever. But you can schedule your missions, you can even like verify your airspace, which is really nice. But let me see if I can find my flight plan. So this is the one that I made for today, and you can make flight plans that are based on, I believe, waypoints or even grid missions. So, and the learning curve for this is not very steep at all. Like, I found this earlier this week. I've flown, I think, I've only made one other mission. As you can see, it was at my house. But you can see right away, like, all the different camera and drone platforms that they support right out of the box. And of course, mine was the Phantom 4, as I mentioned while I was on site. My flight altitude was at 200 feet, and I had a 75% overlap between all of my images. And so that resulted with this... whoops. Hang on. Let me go back. Here we go. Yeah, I just hit that cancel button. And But yeah, you can tweak a lot of the settings like the speed and the altitude, and it'll tell you approximately how long your mission is going to take, which is really nice for planning your battery life. I didn't have fully charged batteries at the moment, and my batteries were about at 60% when I took off. So it'll tell you how many pictures it's going to take, roughly how long the flight is going to take, and you know it's like, okay, how many batteries am I going to need right away? So that's a little overview of Measure Ground Control, at least what I've been able to explore in the little time that I've been exposed to it. But I'm going to go ahead and offload the photos, and we'll go ahead and process them, and we'll see what we got. Okay, we're back, and I'm about ready to start uploading all the footage we took of the Brickyard to Measure Ground Control. This will be the first map that I've actually created, or model, I should say, that I've created with Measure Ground Control right now. And so I will probably end up experimenting with other platforms that are able to post-process all the footage and whatnot. But I wanted to sort of review all of the raw footage that I got so far. And as you could tell from when I was at the Brickyard, it wasn't the best day, but it was probably the last time I was going to get to fly until next week. So I wanted to go ahead and just make use of my time while it at least wasn't raining. So you can see that these photos are quite dark. While Measure Ground Control has been quite convenient, I do have my complaints about it. For one, it seems to, and this could be just me, but if anyone else has a similar experience with using the app, please, I'd like to know. But it seems to not want to save the camera settings. Like, it seems like maybe like the last setting that I make, like if I'm like adjusting the shutter speed, like I will go into the flight mode to where I can actually manually control the drone and the camera settings, and I will set the exposure of the image to something that I think is acceptable. I will go into the flight plan mode, and the camera settings haven't been saved. So I don't know if that's something else anybody's been experiencing, but the biggest gripe that I have so far, and again, this could be with me, it could be just, maybe my phone isn't that old. I got it back in 2019, so it's not really an old phone. It was brand new at the time, but Measure Ground Control will crash often. Not just if I select a mode, like if I want to either select flight or flight plan, then it'll work just fine. But if I want to switch modes, like manual flight versus like flying a mission, between those modes it'll crash, and it does it quite often. So at the moment, while if I just stay in one mode, I haven't had a single problem at all. But if I'm switching modes, like if I want to change the camera settings and then switch over to flight plan, like the camera settings will be saved, and then secondly, it'll crash. So, and that happens all the time. So, for a little bit of inconvenience in like maybe going into DJI Go 4 to manually set my camera settings in the DJI app, and then switching over to Measure Ground Control to fly the mission for the price tag of $0, that's acceptable, as long as like it has a solid track record with not creating any sort of like flyaway scenarios. But I'm very curious to see what other people's experience with Measure Ground Control is, if anyone has experienced anything similar, or if they've experienced any sort of like flyaway situations where the drone just took off and just stopped responding. That's a really big deal. So if anyone's watching and they've experienced anything like that, I'd love to know about it. But yeah, you can see these images are quite dark, so I don't even know if this footage is going to be usable, but let's just use what we have and see what we get. So I'm all for even if you don't get it right the first time, just start somewhere, and think of something that you can improve the next time. And so I probably can't click and drag, so it's probably just going to ask me, there it is. Okay, so full disclaimer, one thing I didn't realize is I tried to upload these and it kept saying that all of my, like, no matter what I selected, that there was 0 images to be processed. And then I realized that it said all the images must be JPEGs. So I am going to go ahead and jump into Lightroom and just convert these. It'll be done off screen because it's just going to be saving all of my DNGs to JPEGs, and then we'll be back once those are ready to process. Alright, we're back, and everything's been converted to JPEGs, and it was also, when I was in Lightroom, I also upped the exposure for all the images by 1 stop, so we'll see, you know, how that affects the images. And I have, I don't know what to expect for these images. This is my first time creating a model with drone images after flying my first mission, so I don't really know what to expect, but we'll see what we got. Okay, well, if ever I'm going to be using this for commercial purposes, I definitely want the highest possible quality. So even if I'm sacrificing a little bit of time by doing this through, you know, doing this through the cloud, you know, or at least, like, you know, offsite. If I was doing this through Pix4D, my machine would probably process it a lot faster, but that's fine. But we're going to go ahead and just do whatever standard processing we have. Okay, so we're just gonna select the standard 3D map, and if we want to, if that doesn't produce like the expected result, we can just come back and do the 3D model. But it looks like we're also going to get a 3D mesh by just picking the standard just 3D map. So let's just go ahead and select that and continue. And here we're going to do, I'm just going to pick just like all the default settings it gives me, and we're just going, because again, this is my first model that I've made. We're going to create like a standard 3D model with what we have, and we'll just look at it once it's done, and we'll see what we can do better for next time. So let's just go ahead and submit for processing and see how long that's going to take us. Okay, so we're back in Measure Ground Control, and to my surprise, this finished a lot sooner than I thought it would. Like, I wasn't expecting this would be done tonight, but shortly after walking away from my computer, I got an email that said it would be done in about 50 minutes, and about 10 minutes after that, everything was done. So this is just a second attempt that I did just to generate just 3D models, but here's the original one that I did, the Fairdale Brickyard. So let's just go ahead and click on that, and we'll start taking a look. And so I tinkered around with this a little bit before jumping back into recording, but so here we are, just sort of like a high-level overview. It starts out with putting your orthomosaic with like all of the images stitched together, and just, you know, again, for reference, like these are the individual images that we started with, and this is what it was able to put together. And if you go over here to this part of the screen, you can download the orthomosaic, and I went ahead and popped it into Lightroom. Oh, not that one. Into Lightroom, I popped the orthomosaic in, and I just thought I'd lighten it up a little bit and export it. But as you can see, it's like, you know, the number one problem that I have with the results is noise. It was darker in the day. I had the ISO cranked way up, and I upped the exposure a little bit prior to popping them into Measure Ground Controls. So there is quite a bit of noise, and if it was a brighter day and I was lower to the ground, the quality of the image might be a little bit better. But again, as I said, it's a first attempt, and that's something that I'm going to try for next time.
So let's go ahead and go back to measure ground control and take a look at what other options we have. So that was the orthomosaic. Oh, and you can see that it overlays this on top of the street view, which can be dark mode, light mode, and satellite. And so you can just toggle on and off, and you can see. What's interesting is I like to see what's the difference between the satellite view and the orthomosaic. You can see that there was a lot of I don't know what these structures are. Probably containers, boxes, but they're not there anymore. So there was definitely some time between when I made this map versus when the satellite images were taken. But we have the orthomosaic, we have the digital surface model, which is rendering right now. And I don't, for some reason, the contour information is not available. I'll see what that's about, but later on. But again, I'm just emphasizing, this is my first exposure to 3D mapping with the drone. And one thing I do want to point out that I just think is really so I wasn't aware that Measure Ground Control used the Pix 4D at its core, but it gives you a quality report of your maps that you're rendering. So here's my orthomosaic. Here's a copy of the digital surface model. And let's see, it'll for a first attempt, from what I can interpret from the report, it's a pretty good map. So the actual building that we wanted to map is here, and you can see the overlap right here. We're well in the green, so our images are pretty good in terms of overlap and what we gave Measure Ground Control to actually create the final deliverables with. But this is a lot of information to go through, and I'll go through this in depth and probably make a follow-up on this as to how to actually interpret these reports, because a report is only as good as if you can't interpret it and you don't know what you're looking at, then what good is the report. But this took me a moment to find, but if you notice, there's no interface to see the 3D model. You can see your flight logs and the flight plan that was taken to generate the map. But if you go up here to this first line in the data products, you can see that you can actually view this in Pix 4D. So if we click on that, and let's just close tabs to the right. So this should be familiar at this point. It's the same image we looked at previously, but I'm going to toggle over to 3D, and there it is. There's our building, and this was the part that I was the most excited for. I'm going to go here, and just for kicks, I'm just going to crank this to the max. Let me see. Can I put on the textured mesh? There we go. So this is just the coolest thing ever. This part right here didn't turn out so well. It might just be because I just didn't get a solid view of this, but there's a few problems. But I mean, you can definitely get an overview other than this part right here. It's really, if you weren't there and didn't see the photos that this was that this model was built from, you probably wouldn't know exactly what this was. So yeah, that's a little this could definitely have been better, but you can tell you can actually read some of the graffiti that I mentioned earlier in the video when I was on site today. but you can tell like the individual structures. You can even see the individual trees and plant growth that have started to claim certain areas of the brickyard, and you can see the elevation. Like here's the road to access the brickyard, and here's the parking lot where I was standing, and the building. Yeah, I'm just kind of all over the place right now just because I think this is just the coolest thing ever. I've been waiting for a long time to get to play around with this, but I would say for a first attempt, this is pretty good. But again, like I said, it's only as good as your ability to actually interpret it and create useful information from it, which is going to be my goal eventually. So what's going to be on the horizon for my business is if you follow me on social media and my YouTube channel, you've probably seen a lot of the real estate videos and photos that I've been creating, but that's only one of the tiers of my business. I'm definitely the next big push for my business is definitely going to be construction progress reporting, with construction site mapping for resource utilization and time lapses, and things of that nature. So at least for a first attempt, that's a very good step in the right direction, I would think. Yeah, that's my experience with Measure ground control at the moment, and I think this is mission success, at least for a first attempt. We actually have data that we can turn into orthomosaics and 3D models. But so I guess that's the end of this video, but if you've been following along and you liked the content that you've been seeing, please give me a like and subscribe, and consider following me on my various social media platforms. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, yeah, there's going to be a lot more to come in the future. This is only the beginning, and it's the sky is the limit. So with that, fly safe, and I'll see you in the next video.